You walk into any modern arena, boardroom, social feed, dinner table, and see the same tired play. People scrambling to look good, explaining minor mistakes as if they're on trial, twisting their words into sweet nothings for an audience already halfway to the next thing. Machiavelli would walk into this glowing, noisy show, breathe in the artificial light, and grin. For him, this would be easy. The need to please is the crack that weakens every defense. He wouldn't run surveys or hire branding experts. He'd quietly release 21 invisible rules, let them spread like scentless gas, and stand still while everyone else tried to outshine each other, slowly watching the room shift its attention toward him. His first ruthless principle: clarity is for healing, not for power. In a world obsessed with being transparent, he'd inject just enough confusion to keep people guessing. He'd hold back facts like medicine, giving just enough truth when it bought him something, like loyalty. His second move, tightly linked to the first: he'd speak last, because he knows the first opinion is always buried by the ones that come after, but the final word rings like law. Third, he'd use silence like a weapon. If you're explaining, you've already surrendered. If you say nothing, others rush to fill in the blanks, and in doing so, they make you seem larger than life. His fourth rule reshapes how things are seen. Control how something is seen, and you control what happens. If someone insulted him, he'd act like he didn't hear, answer a bigger question, and force the room to ignore the insult like background noise, just as a king doesn't acknowledge barking dogs. Fifth, he'd give out gratitude so rarely that even a small nod felt like a royal blessing. Sixth, he'd move like something ancient and slow, never rushing, never stalling, like tectonic plates reshaping continents while everyone nearby went on with daily life. Seventh, he'd never bother to deny rumors. They'd puff up and burst under their own nonsense. Denying them would only make them stronger. Eighth, he'd use his opponent's own energy against them. Let them attack, then step aside so their force throws them into the public's judgment. Ninth, he'd pick allies who felt they owed him more than they feared him, because debt feels soft, like silk, until it pulls tight. 10th, he'd hide sharp claws beneath soft words, greeting even enemies with such gentle charm they'd forget the danger beneath. 11th, he'd treat information like rare coins, never giving it away easily. Confirming a rumor too quickly makes it worthless, but acknowledging it slowly with a smile makes it spread richer and deeper. 12th, he'd use people's urge to be correct against them. He'd toss out a slightly wrong fact, baiting experts into long-winded corrections while he quietly moved the real goal out of reach. 13th, he'd only promise things using if or when, tying them to performance. That way, if things fail, it's your fault. If they succeed, he looks generous. 14th, he'd cut down arguments with cold, short lines like, "I hear you," a quick slice that ends things without giving ground. 15th, he'd vanish randomly, proving that showing up is more powerful when your absence is noticed. 16th, he'd treat failure not as a mistake, but as betrayal. If someone slipped up, he'd call it disloyalty, forcing others to over-deliver just to prove they're not secretly working against him. 17th, he'd turn sorry into a deal. How will you earn back trust? Now the burden shifts back. 18th, he'd hold meetings standing up because tired legs make speeches short. Strategy hides in the setup. 19th, he'd laugh rarely and never at someone else's joke unless that laugh gave him something, because cheap laughs lower your power. 20th, he'd seem untouchable by making every favor look earned. Every gift would feel like a reward for something, not a random act. That way, no one could accuse him of favoritism. And the 21st rule, the crown jewel, he'd never defend himself. The one who explains submits. The one who stays silent lets others fill in the gaps. This rule is the root from which all others grow. Silence becomes a fortress, a mirror that reflects attackers' weakness, a curtain that turns doubt into power. Why does this kind of dominance still work so well in 2025, a time full of therapy groups and be your true self movements? Because biology doesn't care about social ideals. The brain still panics at uncertainty, stress still spikes when power is unclear, and we still crave the approval we can't quite reach. Machiavelli wouldn't need new tactics. He'd just plug old instincts into new tech. Imagine the modern open office where people answer messages instantly. He'd reply to 3 emails a day, each one sharp, vague, and on his terms. Soon, everyone would rearrange their schedules to keep up with his rhythm. Picture a chaotic livestream debate. While influencers shout over each other, he'd mute himself. The chat would buzz. Was his silence smug? Was it brilliance? Then, just once, he'd unmute and say 5 words that made the last 40 minutes feel outdated. In private messages, he'd leave the typing bubble visible for a while, stirring anxiety before deleting it and sending "under consideration." People would screenshot it, argue over it, analyze it. He'd sip tea and let their imaginations do the work. Critics would call him manipulative. He'd shrug. Umbrellas obey rain, bones obey gravity, systems guide behavior. He's just following the rules others pretend don't exist. The guy who insists on fairness in a game already rigged isn't noble, just naive. Better to quietly rig the game, win it, and let the losers whine about ethics while you pocket the chips. At a dinner party, he wouldn't sit where he was told. He'd choose a different seat, shifting the room's center. By dessert, people would be unconsciously facing him. Online, he'd follow fewer people than those who follow him, creating the quiet message, "I'm the prize." In negotiation, after making an offer, he'd say nothing, because whoever speaks next lowers their own price. Every move would be another piece of a larger pattern, a slow, careful arrangement of power built from simple acts. And what about friendship or love? Can this work allow for those? Machiavelli would say affection without respect turns into demands, but respect grows in the shadow of mystery. A partner who doesn't blame the day for their silence, but instead looks up, smiles, and keeps building, is more attractive than one who constantly analyzes emotions out loud. Charm without limits attracts problems. Charm with discipline grows gardens. Some will try to copy this style by memorizing lines, but parrots don't inherit thrones. The true secret is self-control. Waiting before reacting requires a tight grip on impulse. Delaying a message until your emotions settle takes discipline. Letting rumors mature until they serve your goals takes lungs ready for deep water. Machiavelli's brilliance wasn't in clever tricks. It was in patience, so precise it could slice time. Moments so carefully carved, they looked like destiny. Look at the politician who apologizes online at midnight, hoping the late hour buries shame. Machiavelli would sleep, wait for morning, then face reporters with one sentence that reframes the issue as proof of national strength. Or the entrepreneur who streams messy brainstorming. Machiavelli would drop a single polished product, letting mystery beat mess. Or the activist who posts daily manifestos. He'd say, "Too much yelling becomes background noise. Beneath all of it is one truth. Power comes from staying calm, not from confessing everything. Yes, being open feels good, but feelings don't pay salaries. People hire, love, follow, and vote for those who make their uncertainty feel safe. If you seem steady, they rest easy. That rest becomes gratitude. Gratitude turns into reliance, and reliance matures into loyalty. That's how empires are built. But even this has limits. Too much control breeds rebellion. So Machiavelli would keep things just unpredictable enough to stop people from organizing against him. He'd forgive a small insult publicly, to show grace. Lose a minor vote on purpose to show he's not untouchable. Make fun of himself over coffee, to show he's still human. These small cracks release pressure before it explodes. The goal isn't fear, it's awe. A balance of respect and caution that leads to quiet obedience. Machiavelli's legacy isn't locked in old books. It lives in every long glance, every pause before an answer, every well-placed act of kindness. These tactics don't make you cruel. They protect you from those who already are. Kindness without defense feeds wolves. Strategy with a conscience builds kingdoms. Zoom out to global conflicts. Countries argue over sea borders. Leaks flood the media. People pick sides. Machiavelli? He'd stay silent, then call for a meeting in a neutral city, show up last, leave first, take no questions except to say, "We made progress." That pause would drive headlines. Investors would react. Meanwhile, talks would already be steering toward the outcome he'd planned long ago. Some say this kills authenticity. They confuse being real with being exposed. But true authenticity means your actions match your goals. If your goal is to move things without drowning in drama, then silence isn't lying. It's alignment. Sharing every passing fear isn't honesty. It's clutter. Machiavelli kept his real thoughts in private notes. What mattered in public was clarity of purpose. Sometimes someone will try the empathy trap. I just want to understand you. Sounds nice, but it's bait. Share your feelings and they'll use them against you. Machiavelli would smile and say, let's focus on where we're headed. That turn shuts the door on probing and opens one toward leadership. It's not rude, it's deliberate. Media trainers love telling leaders to share personal failures. Machiavelli would pick a distant one, far away in time or place, long resolved, so no one could poke holes. The crowd feels close to him, but he stays armored. Vulnerability, when offered on a leash, can connect without weakening. That's the difference between amateurs and masters. Worried this path is too cynical? Real cynicism comes from giving up on ideals. Machiavelli's structure protects ideals. A seed burns if you put it in the sun too soon. He'd keep his mission buried deep in solitude, away from noise. By the time it showed itself, it would be tough enough to withstand storms. Private discipline shows up in quiet habits. Imagine ending the week with a silent review. Which explanations could you have skipped? Which emails trained others to expect you immediately? Which jokes begged for approval? Cut one of those habits next week. Slowly, you'll notice your mornings feel more open. That's your attention, freed from explaining. And in its place grows vision. In the end, legacy isn't about being remembered emotionally. It's about shaping the space others move in. Buildings last longer than stories. Machiavelli's 21 rules build those structures. People may rename them, smooth them over, call them cold, but they'll still live inside the walls he drew. You can either grumble about the rules or learn to build with them. Eventually, copycats will flood the stage. They'll claim openness is power. They'll live stream every meal, chart moods, open calendars to strangers, overshare daily doubts. The cycle will break. And when the world starts craving mystery again, the Machiavellian will already be in power, quiet, composed, ahead of the curve. Until then, the path stays simple, if hard. Think a bit longer than you speak. Kill half your apologies before they're said. Redirect questions to places you choose. Don't dress up fear. And know that one well-timed absence can say more than 1,000 showings. These quiet habits stack into gravity. You'll know they're working when critics flatter you before attacking, when friends adjust their calendars to your silences, when deadlines move to your pace. The final test? When a crisis hits, when reporters swarm, when pressure's high, do you host a press frenzy or sit in stillness? Machiavelli would send out a short note, 13 words, max, acknowledging concern and promising review. Then he'd vanish. When he returned, he'd bring results, not stories. By then, the drama junkies would be chasing a new scandal, and the only thing the world still rewards, resolved uncertainty, would be his. So we end where we began. Defending yourself is the start of losing. Refusing to defend is how power begins. From that refusal, the 21 tactics bloom. Practice them until they become second nature. When they do, you'll look at chaos the way a conductor sees instruments. Messy alone, obedient with one gesture. And with that gesture, you'll shape silence into symphony. Machiavelli's been edited, misunderstood, praised, and blamed over centuries. But the force behind his words still fits the tempo of today. His spirit walks through tech offices, government meetings, media rooms, and neighborhood councils, watching every moment when calm outshines noise. He doesn't judge why you act. He looks at how. When he sees control, he nods. When he sees weakness dressed up as honesty, he smiles, because that kind of indulgence always defeats itself. You can ignore his nod. The world won't. So before sleep, imagine a future stage with your name. Ask yourself, does it glow from begging for attention, or does it shine with its own quiet power? Picture rumors swirling like weather you never comment on, plans unfolding like seasons you planted long ago. Ask yourself, do defenders ever reach that stillness? Then let the question fade. Even wondering is a soft kind of defense. Turn off the light. Let silence return. Let the 21 rules keep watch.